So here, this is how I set up the animated elements in Blender. Although this is only for the background and the wisps coming out of the hole. This is what the texture looks like. This is for the wisps. It's like much separated as compared to the background ones, which has fainter lines to make up the texture, to fill up the space. And this is what the UVs look like. And I just scroll it, although I use a node shader for this to do the animation. This is how I control the animation for the background, and this is for the wisp. I just kinda eyeballed it on how it would look. This was what the layers look like on Blender. I just rendered them separately, so it's easier to put together in After Effects. The mesh for the background and the wisps aren't high res, so it's kinda jaggy, and it's like kind of a side effect. It's kind of a cool effect as well. And so this is how I set up everything in After Effects. I'll start with the background because that's like the least stuff I've done with it. It's basically just the render, although normally without the edits it's just very gray, so I had to use exposure and then color dodge. Oh wait, yeah, here's the original opacity and here's what it looks like without the exposure, so I have to bring it up and set it to color dodge. Here's the main color of the background. The reason I use color dodge instead of screen because screen just gives me a flat white, as opposed to color dodge, which is like if the anything below white becomes a different color, or in this case it becomes pink because it's like an overlay effect. And then I tone it down so it doesn't overwhelm the wisps that's going around tatters like that. And this is how I set up the wisps. At first, this is the base setup, which is basically all the renders on top of each other and then put into a comp, so it's easier to layer here. And then I added an adjustment layer with the blur that's only limited to the surrounding area of the hole. And then to make the glow of the wisp, I basically duplicated all of the wisp layers and just give it a Gaussian blur, and then set it to color dodge as well because of the overlay of the varying colors that it gives instead of giving me a flat white. As for here, you can see there's a, let me play this out. You can see there's a subtle throbbing effect. I was kind of like going for a heartbeat, and how I made that is with using a displacement layer again. I mean an adjustment layer with this displacement map, and this is what the displacement map looks like. It's just a throbbing ring. Without all the effects, this is what the ring looks like by default, but with just the Gaussian blur and the rescale. And what else have I? Gaussian blur, scale, and the opacity. And just with all that, I made this displacement map to distort the surrounding hole. And as for the chromatic aberration effect on the black hole, I used the orb. I masked out the orb from the illustration itself. Let me see. Okay, you could barely see it, but this is what the actual orb looks like, and this is without the luma key that removes the white outline. I gave it the wiggle effect, the wiggle position, so it's like kind of spazzing out to show how much energy it's emitting. And then as for the chromatic aberration, this is what it looks like. So here it basically just duplicated the black orb and then gave it a red and blue color overlay, and then I multiplied it on top of each other so it creates this outline. And then I animated the Gaussian blur and the scale, so it's an erratic pattern, so it's like fighting to get noticed. So it's to show how unstable it is. And then I duplicated that setup, the blue and red, and then gave it and made it inverted, so it's like instead of red and blue, it instead emits yellow and cyan. And then I put that underneath the original black hole, and rotated it so it doesn't line up with the original blue and red orb. So when it's animated, it's like it comes on top every now and then, and showing all of the colors. And that's how I animated this in After Effects.